So I'll burn the curtains down. They want a show.
Hi, so today I'm going to be doing a little behind the scenes tour of our song Burn the Curtains Down. I'm going to split this video into 3 sections. So first we're going to talk a little bit about the music theory, so that's what chords we've used and why. Second, we're going to talk about the arrangement, so that's what instruments we've used in each section. And then third, we're going to have a little look at some production techniques that I've used. So starting with the verse, we're just going to have a look at what chords we've used. So the first chord here is a D minor, so we've got D, F, A, and then on top we've added C and E, which is the 7th and the 9th of the chord, and it just gives us this kind of static, dreamy sound. It's a very pretty sound. It kind of reflects the lyrics of feeling safe around nature. Our second chord that we've got here is a C major, C, E, G, and then we've got B on top, so that's the 7th note of the chord. And then we're going back to this same D minor chord with the same extensions on top, and then finally moving to a G chord, G, B, D, with an added F, so that makes a G7 chord. And this chord kind of feels like it wants to go somewhere, it feels like it's leading into something. So if we have a look at all the notes that we've got here, if I just highlight all the chords, we can see that we've got a scale that looks like it should be C major or A minor. It's got all the notes, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That would usually be C major, but because we're starting on this D minor chord and that's our home chord that it feels like the song wants to resolve to, I'm going to call this D Dorian, which is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So it's a scale with all the notes of C major, but it's just moved up a tone. Okay, so let's have a look at our pre-chorus. That's just over here. We're starting out with an F chord, so that's F, A, C, and then we've just moved the top note to the bottom and inverted that chord. And then next we've got G, B, D, which is a G major chord, and again we've moved that top note down to the bottom. Following that we've got just a very standard D minor chord, D, F, A. And then here we're just moving back and forth between that G chord and the D minor chord, staying quite static. We're building up towards our chorus, so then we get over to here.
Oh, so I'll burn the curtains down.
And we're resolving back to our D minor chords. As I said before, that's the chord that feels like home, so when the chorus comes in on that D minor chord, it feels like we've gotten home, it feels resolved. So if we have a look at the chords we've used in the chorus, I'll just select them all like I did for the verse, and we can see that something interesting is happening here. We've got a B flat note, which we didn't have before. So if you remember before, our scale was D Dorian, which is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Now it maybe feels a bit more like we're in D minor, which is D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, because we've got this B flat note coming in here. So our chords are standard D minor chord, D, F, A, B flat chord, B flat, D, F, and we've just put the first up on the top there, D, F, B flat, and then we've got a C major chord, C, E, G, and then another C on the top there, and you can see from the way that the chords are arranged that there's this sense of the chorus growing. So we're starting off with this small D minor chord, and then here we've got this big wide C major chord, so it's starting small and then it's growing. And then the second time we've got the chords, instead of the C major chord at the end, we've got this G chord, and that creates a nice chromatic motion in the top. We're going A, B flat, B, and that sounds like this. And that just kind of grabs your ear. It sounds quite interesting. It adds a little something to the chorus that sets it apart from the verse and the pre-chorus. We've introduced this new chord, this B flat note. So following on from that, we've used the exact same chords in verse 2, the second pre-chorus and the final chorus, and then we're just finishing here, this little end bit.
Now we have hope.
So those are the chords that we've used in the chorus, which are D minor, B flat, and then C. Now if you remember, we said before we were in the key of D Dorian, which uses all the notes of C major but starting on D, so D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. What's interesting about this chord to finish the song is that it sort of sounds unresolved. So even though it sounds at home in the key, and usually in the key of C major that would be the home chord, because we've written our song in D Dorian, this C major at the end feels unresolved. And I just think that works really well with the story. If you don't know, this song is actually based on the second Hunger Games book. So the idea of ending on that line, now we have hope, on this unresolved chord that hasn't gone back to D minor like we were expecting. I just think it really resonates with the story, which is nice, and the lyrics resonate with the story as well, so it's all coming together, it's all working in harmony, which is nice.
In the meadows I am safe.
Alright, so moving on to section 2, that is the arrangement. We're just going to talk a little bit about what instruments we've used and how we've separated the chorus, pre-chorus and the verse. So starting off with the verse, we've obviously got our guitar intro. And this is all played in on a MIDI guitar, which then continues into the verse playing chords, which sounds like this.
In the meadows I am safe.
And the idea of just having one instrument on its own, and that instrument being an acoustic guitar, not an electronic instrument, it reflects the lyrics of feeling safe in nature, feeling at home in nature. And then we're moving on to our pre-chorus, and we're just introducing some drums here.
You can control the flame if it's alive.
So here the lyrics are moving away from nature and they're straying more into the area of revolution. We're starting to build up the music as the lyrics build up. So we've just used a very simple drum beat. I'll just select it here so I can show you. It sounds like this. And that's creating anticipation for our chorus. And then the other instrument that we've added here is a synth bass. So we're starting to add in a few more electronic instruments, as well as the acoustic guitar. Okay, so moving on to the chorus, we've got a lot more going on here, as you can see. We've got some synthesizers here. I'll just solo them and show you what they sound like. And we've got our synth bass that's carrying on from the pre-chorus. We've got a very distorted electric guitar that's just creating some impact for when the chorus comes in. And we've just used an amp to create that distorted sound. As well as that, we've got some trombones, and they're also creating that impact that tells you that this is the chorus now. So that sounds like this. We've got a few more orchestral instruments. We've got flutes and violins, and they're just at the top here. So all of this is just filling out our stereo field. So that's the left ear and the right ear. We're starting out with a very small mix, just guitar and vocal, nothing else. And then we're building it up. We're adding more things. We've got these synths. So this is on the left ear, this is on the right ear. I'll show you what that sounds like. It's just making the chorus sound much wider than the verse and giving it more impact. The final thing we've added in the chorus is just a slightly more complex drum beat, so I can show you what that looks like now. You can see there's a lot more going on. These red notes indicate louder notes, the green ones are quieter, so compared to the pre-chorus, you can see that the velocity is a lot higher. So I'll show you what that sounds like. And all of this is working together to give the chorus the drive that it needs.
You can control the flame.
So our third and final section is going to be about production. So first I'm going to have a look at the vocals and what I've done to those. So you can see here what I've done is I've taken sections from the vocal in the verse that I think would benefit from a little extra reverb. So I'll show you what these sound like. So that's taking the from in the meadow, and it's just reverberating a lot longer than the rest of the line. So you can hear that continues on for a long time, and if we listen to that with the rest of the vocal, it sounds like this.
In the meadows I am safe.
So it's just taking particular notes and carrying them over to give a nice ambient reverberant sound. It sounds very pretty, it works well with the lyrics and with the acoustic guitar. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what plugins I've got here on the vocals. So we're starting with the EQ, and that's just reducing or heightening some frequencies that we maybe want or don't want. So starting out around the middle with 800 Hertz, that's a frequency that sounds quite boomy on the vocals, so I can show you what it would sound like if we had a lot of that frequency. It would sound like this.
In the meadows I am safe.
So we're just reducing that a little bit to make sure we don't have too much of that unpleasant sound. And then at the top here, we've got the breathiness, so I've heightened that a little bit to get a nice breathy sound. The bottom is the sort of fullness of the vocal. And then this very bottom, we're just reducing anything that's below the range of human hearing that we just really don't need. And then the other plugin I'm going to talk about is our compressor here. So for the vocals, we've got the compressor not doing too much because we don't want a super processed compressed sound. We just want a very natural sounding vocal. So we have it set to a ratio of 2:1, as you can see here from this middle knob, and the threshold where it's starting to work is minus 27.5 decibels. And what that's doing is it's taking some of those louder sounds and it's just squashing them down, reducing the distance between the loudest and the softest part of the vocal, and we're making sure that nothing is too loud and nothing is too soft and lost in the mix. And then this knob on the right here that you can see is makeup gain. So because compression can reduce the overall volume of the vocal, all we're doing here is just bringing it back up to the level it started at. And then the final plugin that we've got on the vocals is a de-esser, and this is a type of dynamic EQ that's just reducing some of the harsh frequencies in the upper range that we don't want, so that's sibilants like s, that really just doesn't sound very nice in your ears. So we've got that going on just to clean up the vocals a little bit for us. Then moving on to the pre-chorus and the chorus, we've got these, which are vocal doubles. So these are versions of the pre-chorus and chorus that are just played much quieter in the background, and they are panned to the left and the right. So that means they're in the left and right ears, and they're again filling out the stereo field, making the vocal sound much wider. I can show you what this sounds like in isolation. It sounds like this.
Oh, but in the curtains down.
And then with the main vocal, it sounds like this.
Oh, but in the curtains down.
And you can hear that's just making the vocal sound a bit thicker, a bit wider. So the final thing I want to talk about in terms of the vocal production is these harmonies that we've got going on in the second chorus. So you can see here that I've used an EQ to remove a lot of the low end frequency of the harmonies, and that's because I don't want it to conflict with the main vocal and make things sound muddy. I want them to stay nice and out of the way. And again, we've got these panned to the left and to the right. You can see the knob is turned quite far around, which means they're quite far onto the left and to the right. And they're just two different harmonies that I've sung in that are working together. They sound like this. And they're supporting the main vocal, they're creating this nice dreamy sound. Together it all sounds like this.
An army of ghosts. Oh, but in the curtains down. They want to show.
So that's everything that I wanted to talk about. If you haven't heard our song yet, definitely go check it out. It's called Burn the Curtains Down. It's based on the second Hunger Games book, as I mentioned before. Definitely worth a listen. Go check it out.